Love is beautiful, but let's be real, it ain't always easy. We've been through the storms, the highs, the lows, and everything in between.
But through it all, we made a choice again and again. We chose love, we chose commitment, we chose us.
Because marriage isn't just about saying I do, it's about choosing to stay.
Welcome to We Chose Us, because love is worth the fight. Hey, what's up, choosers? We chose us here.
We really sticking with choosers?
I kind of like choosers. We need some merch that says choosers. It draws conversation, I think. People are like, what does a chooser mean? What are you choosing? And then they can know, it's this podcast. We chose us. You need to listen. You know, I just kind of think like that. We need to start doing some merch too, if you ask me. We need to get that going. But welcome, y'all, for another episode. I don't even know what episode we're on. I guess it really doesn't matter. We're just, we're in our season 2. Right. Mm-hmm. And we're so excited to be here and sharing just our stories with you all. How you doing, Kris?
Doing good. We ready.
You look nice.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
I like what you got on.
I see you tried to match.
Oh, I tried to match?
I probably picked my stuff out first.
Oh, is that what happened? Because I could have sworn my stuff was out first.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Carry on.
All right. Well, listen, folks, today, we were talking about where we were going to go today. And today's episode is actually called Crisis Mode, the Silent Signals of a Failing Marriage. I believe that this is critical for you to pay attention to, those of you that are married. And even if you're not, right? So you can understand the signals, you can understand where you are, because I think one of the biggest things for us was not recognizing how bad it actually had gotten.
How bad?
And there were a lot of silent signals, I feel, that I can't even remember them all. Yeah. But I do believe that there were a lot of silent signals that if we would have caught them, then maybe we wouldn't have gone as far as we did. Now, thankfully, we didn't get a divorce and we were able to rebound from that. But I think when I have conversations with a lot of people, it's very interesting because people are having conversations with me and I see big red flag over here and they just mosey on and like it's all good. And I'm sitting here like, should I say something? What are your thoughts about that?
I think one, I agree. When we do counsel, I think a lot of people have many silent signals that are alerting them, hey, over here, I need to be fixed. But we're so used to just kind of putting on, and just kind of showcasing that all is good, all is well. Like I got a man, or I got a woman, or I'm in a relationship, and we're so used to just masking happiness that we don't take the time to actually address the hurt so that we can actually be happy. And so I really believe that silent signals even reach beyond, couple relationships or marriages, and even go into any type of relationship in our lives, parent to child, sibling, relationships with friends. There's so many silent signals that alert, that something's not right. Because many times I think we feel displaced, but we just kind of chop it up as just, I don't really know what that is, but we're going to keep it moving. And we never really address kind of those things that just causes wear and tear and pressure. So,
yeah. Well, let's go back. Let's go back into time here. And I'm going to ask you something looking back at us, because we can look at what other people are experiencing, right? But I think the best example is us, and looking back at our relationship in the first 8 years when things were just unfolding consistently, right? What were some of the red flags? And let's add a little caveat to it, because, and you might think differently. I feel like a red flag is something that's more consistent than not. Okay. Onesie, twosie, okay, like nobody's perfect type stuff. But in our relationship, and again, you can think totally differently, but What were some of those silent red flags that should have been addressed, but you didn't address it, or you didn't know how to?
I don't know if there were there were a lot of silent red flags, but I think,
or silent signals.
Like there were a lot of silent signals, but I think one of the heaviest was realizing that we could not just have a normal conversation. I think it was silent because I took it as just kind of like, because our relationship became more transactional, kind of like we had this church, we're pastors, we're going to talk about the church, we're going to talk about the bills of the church, the next move of the church, the events of the church, the couples we're counseling. Like we had so much to talk about, but we never kind of talked about us. We never talked about ourselves individually. Like I could never just sit down and just talk about me, or you could never sit down and just talk about you. Like we didn't have normal convo. It was transactional. It was like a business, what we need, what we have going on, what's next. And even outside of the church, it was what bills needed to be paid, what's coming in, what's happening, what we may be short on. Like everything was transactional. And I think that was a silent signal, because it turned into a big alarm when we would have arguments. And so it was like a realization that we never just talked, but we would either go from transactional to just straight arguments. And then in the arguments, all the personal stuff come out. Yeah. And it's like, and I remember we would say to each other, well, why couldn't you just talk to me about that? Well, we never talked. Yeah. And so I think if I can go back, one of the biggest kind of red flags that kind of hit, that said, hey, your marriage is in danger, is I was pregnant with Kyler. You remember this? And we had already been, like I said, there have been many silent signals. And it was like a buildup. And I was pregnant with Kyler. And I remember we were upstairs and we were arguing about something. I don't even remember what the argument was about, but it was big. Because I remember my head was hurting. We were hollering at the top of our lungs. And I walked downstairs, and I think, I feel like this was the time where we were about to be evicted. We couldn't pay the rent. And things were kind of backed up already, and we were just pretty much about to vacate the premises. And we were both just at the end. And we were yelling, and you were over the banister, and I walked downstairs, and you had said, like, you were yelling at me about something. I can't remember what it was, but I remember it was something along the lines of like, you're not going to change. This is who you are. I'm done. If you don't accept me for me, then that's it. And I remember I hit the door and I was like, I hate you. I hate you. And right when I said that, I started bleeding. Mm-hmm. And I ran in the bathroom and I was like, what is this coming out? I was like, Rob, I'm bleeding. But I'm like, I want to say like 6 months pregnant. And I was like, I'm bleeding. And I remember we just jumped in the car and we sped to the hospital. And that was a huge alarm. Like, your marriage is in danger. Like it was like, it didn't even matter that I was pregnant. It was like, we were just in a very low place. And I remember we both at that moment started praying over Kyler, because I thought I had lost him because of the weight that we were carrying in our marriage.
I think I remember that, and it was part of that, but it was right after the Land Rover blew up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have a car because the dealership had given us a car to ride around it, but technically we didn't have a car. The dealership the dealership was trying to do some weird stuff, and we might get to that later. But anyway, we had a Land Rover, and that was our primary mode of transportation, and that caught on fire. Mm-hmm. That was July 4th weekend, and you were going to have Kyler like the next month. So you were beyond 6 months because you had Kyler in August. Mm-hmm. So we were beyond 6 months, but I do remember that. And I don't remember you saying I do remember you saying, I don't remember it then, not saying that you didn't, but yeah, that was a lot of stuff, because it makes you bring things in perspective, because what were we doing yelling at each other that much at that time?
Mm-hmm. Because it was the buildup.
It was the buildup.
That's what I mean. It those silent signals build up. It's like little moments to say, hey, you're sinking. Hey, you're about to go under. Hey, you're going too far. Hey, at some point you need to stop. At some point you need to address this. At some point you need to slow down. At some point you need to fix this. And it was just, we kept going and going because of the transaction that was in place.
Yeah.
Our church was the only reason why we kept going.
Yeah.
The members, the amount of people who were being saved, the highlight of our relationship was the amount of people who came to church that Sunday.
Yeah.
We would leave church and say, we want to talk about each other. You had a good day? You had a good day? How you doing? How are you doing? It would be, man, like we would get happy because, man, did you see who got saved? Did you see the amount of people that came to church?
Yep.
And after that was it. But we never talked about simple things about each other. So even if you go back to those moments of silent signals, I can't even tell you what you liked, what you enjoyed, what hobbies you might have had during that time. I don't know. I don't even know what the only reason why I probably know what you like to eat, because you always eat jerk chicken. but other than that, I wouldn't know your favorite foods. I wouldn't know anything really about you, and you were my husband. Yeah. All I knew was what was going on in the church. And those were the highlights of our lives. And so to me, those are silent signals. Yeah. When all you could talk about is the business, when all you could talk about are the bills or the job or the kids, but there's no conversation about each other, that's a silent signal that something's not right, that something in your marriage is wounded, something's hurting, because you can't even sit and have a conversation about each other. You can't even sit and just have a normal conversation about kind of just how you're feeling. There's no trust, there's no connect. And so everything is transactional or surfacey. Yeah. That's silent. But we look at that as everything's okay, because a lot of times those weren't arguments. There was no depth. And so to me, everything's okay. Yeah. We're okay. We ain't arguing. Praise the Lord. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like we done got through 3 days with no arguments. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing that connected us. Yeah. It was surfacey and transactional. And it's hard to look at those as red flags because there's no alarm going off. That's why it's a silent signal, because no alarm is sounding. We're not arguing. We're not on top of each other's heads. But there's also no intimacy. There's also going 8 months to a year with no sex. There's also no conversation, like I said, about each other. There's also no date nights. There are no holding hands. There are no kissing. Yeah,
it got so bad, y'all. Like, I would walk up, I have a beard, goatee or whatever. I would walk up behind her and I would try to kiss her on like her neck or her shoulder, something like that. And she would jump. Because it was
foreign.
And it would, of course, when she would jump, I would draw back because I'm not trying to put you in no uncomfortable position or nothing like that. And that's one thing, if a man is really caring about his wife and wanting her and desiring her, but making sure that he's not, overstepping his boundaries, is when your wife is jumping when you're trying to like kiss her or something like that. Then that's a total turn off, if you will. Yeah. I'm like, man, let me just go on back over here in my corner because I ain't nothing about to go on. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then that would be it would go from that being a couple days to weeks to months, and then it would be a consistent, if I kissed her on her, and this would be just maybe in the middle of the day. It wouldn't be, me trying to get any or nothing like that. It might just be walking up behind you, trying to practice something, and it would just feel like a cold shoulder. Yeah. I think that, a lot of what you said, definitely silent signals. I think for me, and thinking about it, was that talking to other people more than talking to you.
Yeah.
Is definitely, or talking to other people more than talking to your spouse is definitely a silent signal. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys feel like they need an outlet and they feel it's okay to talk to a female. I was one of them because like a lot of people know me. Mm-hmm. If I'm attracted to you, I'm attracted to you. Mm-hmm. If I'm not, I'm not. Like you can be baddest woman that everybody else is looking at. If I'm not attracted to you, I'm just not attracted to you. You can be, I'll agree, you're beautiful, you're pretty, but I'm just not feeling you just for whatever reason. And so I have a lot of sisters per se that over the years, like I have 3 older sisters, you know, and so I got a lot of girls and women that I grew up with over the years or whatever that I've always just been called like, oh yeah, that's sis. And I know in a lot of contexts, she's sis until, right? But nah, like for me, now she's legit sis. Like I'm not feeling it. And so I would have concerns, questions, and conversations that would legitimately be like, man, I don't know what's going on, blah, 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 with Kris and all these different things. Mm-hmm. But it'll become consistent.
Yep. And
then it would become me talking about you to them, and not, number one, you wouldn't know who they are or you wouldn't know the conversation, but then it wouldn't be fair because it would only be hearing my side of the story anyway. So that would be painting you in a bad light. No matter how objective that I would want to be, it would be painting you in a bad light. And when it was so consistent to where I wouldn't come to you about these things, then those were some silent signals as well. And I know guys to this day that they would rather talk to their female friend that might have the same relationship that I have with my female friends as well, that just are trying to bring an outlet. But the thing is, you need to bring it to your spouse and have those conversations if there is an issue there, because the silent signal is, I'm not trusting my spouse enough, but I'm trusting this other person enough.
This
and it
other
don't even
woman.
Have to be.
It's not even just other person. You're trusting this other woman.
Yeah.
And that's something that became a breaking point in our marriage as well. Just showing how a silent thing becomes an alarm is when I found out that you were talking about me to another woman. It in my mind, it didn't matter whether this was sis. You know what I mean? It was like, this ain't your sister. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this another woman who you would talk about. And it was multiple. You know what I mean? It wasn't just one. It was multiple. Because I remember this time, and just being transparent, when we were at church, and there was one who I had never been introduced to. I knew her. I knew you would talk about me to her, but I never met her. And I see her in church and I flipped, like not in public, not on her. I flipped on that. You because here I am standing here with my husband and she know more about me from you. And I ain't never met her. And so for me, that became an alarm in our marriage, because here I am, your wife, and this woman who I don't even know, I felt like had clout over me because she knew all this stuff about me, and I ain't even know her. I ain't even know who she was. So I'm thinking now I'm dealing with, and now it's pulling back the layers. Now I'm dealing with insecurity, inadequacy, inferiority. I'm dealing with all this brokenness now, because here I am supposed to be this woman of God who has no strength in front of this other woman because my husband been talking about me to her. And it ain't been good stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so it carried on to your other female friends. And who, you know, at some point, one of them ended up not liking me, which I think it came from what you were feeding her. But I had never done anything to her. You know what I mean? And so it brings in silent issues, bring in big mess. You know what I mean? Because we don't deal with it. And so we even allow it to trickle into our surroundings. And so that, we just talked about betrayal, that then became a hand of betrayal. Because I felt like you betrayed me, where you supposed to be solid betrayed it. Betrayed.
You betrayed it.
Real
you betrayed it.
Real the cat came out. Betrayed me.
Come on, Sharita.
Betrayed. But I feel like, for real though. But no, I feel like there was betrayal there because you had literally like just, there you go. That was real like emotions coming out. You betrayed me. Like, okay.
You was in it too. That was
the good emotions. Like you betrayed me. Like hold up.
All I could hear was people listening to you pour out your heart, and then somebody be like, "Did she say betrayed?" You know what I'm saying? It'd be a meme or something like that. So
betrayed me.
Hey.
But anyway, no, there was a heavy, like literally, like heavy emotions in that moment of betrayal. Seriously, because I felt like. You went outside of our relationship and kind of just put my name out there amongst these females, and you would do that by looking back, not saying like this is a point that somebody should do. Like this is not something that someone should do, but looking back, I understood because you felt like you didn't have any other space to go to.
Right.
I think a lot of times the silent signals in relationships is kind of that feeling of loneliness and isolation, which you shouldn't feel lonely and isolated in a marriage,
right.
But we do. You know what I mean? And I think that becomes a major issue because that's where infidelity sneaks in.
That is.
It's because you feel so lonely in a marriage that you feel like your only scapegoat is going to someone externally. And when you do that, it like, even though those were one of your sis, like you said, it could have been sis until.
Yeah.
And one of those moments could have transpired into something else. And those are the beginning stages of infidelity and betrayal.
Yeah. Because what ends up happening is that when you go to someone else, you can craft this person to be the enemy. Mm-hmm. You can craft yourself to be the hero, and you can allow them or guide them to connect the dots to be the rescuer, if you will, from the situation. So here you are. Yeah, she's bad. She did all these different things. And then when you're talking to this other person, this other woman, she's doing all the things that your wife isn't doing, right? Now, why is she doing that? Is she doing that because she's legitimately like that? Or is she really feeling you on the other side and wanting to be that rescuer for you,
or
if
feeling
you will.
more connected,
or feeling more connected,
yeah.
Because and so there are different things like you can always look and see where an issue is when you speak to somebody about this, right? And you don't speak to your spouse, and then this person you're speaking about it seems to fulfill that very need. First of all, you got to understand that there is an enemy out there, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. that is presenting all this stuff to you, right? And then you in your internal, you're broken, you're hurt, you need something to fill that gap.
Vulnerable.
So you're vulnerable. So this person is out there and they're filling that gap. And this is now becoming your safe space, when your safe space is supposed to be your spouse. And when things like that happen, like you say, that's what sets up the betrayal, because it does become a sis until or a bro until. And it becomes something that now you can't delineate, or you don't know what's right. You don't know what's wrong anymore, because I'm in this marriage, I'm with this person, but this person over here just makes me feel safe and secure. And I want the safe and security from my spouse, but I'm not getting that. And I need it because I didn't even realize how bad it was until I'm over here and I'm just like, man, dang.
Is this what love is?
Right. Is this, yeah, exactly. Is this what love is? And, that to me, I think for us was a big silent alarm going off for me, not being able to trust you. Now, don't get me wrong, because it wasn't all you. It was, again, like we said in past episodes, me not wanting to open up, or me fearing the rejection. We're used to keeping people at a distance. When you're in a relationship with somebody, you can keep them at arm's length. When you're married, you can't keep them at arm's length anymore. They're right all up under you. So I can call somebody and I can paint a beautiful picture about who I am because you ain't got to stay with me 24/7. What'd you say your mom always tell you? You don't know a person until you live with them. Right? So if this is why I noticed that there are a lot of guys that date a lot of women that they want to be married, but at the same time, every woman that they marry, they're keeping them at arm's length because they don't want to share who they are.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that was, for me, that's a big silent alert there.
Because you feel like when you show who you are, you fear rejection. You fear that you're not enough, you know, which goes back to taking that moment to heal individually. Because one thing I've learned is little things are magnified or amplified in a relationship. So they just carry over. A lot of times they say, you know, all of this will be okay when I get a man or when I get a woman. I'll be all right when I get married. Yeah. Like when I find the one, I won't have to deal with this, that, and the other. But realistically, it just amplifies. It's just magnified. It becomes bigger. And the issues you had when you were single or the issues you had when you were in other relationships are magnified when you get into a marriage. And that's because that marriage is now closer to you. You can no longer just push this person away and do a quick breakup. You now are in a intimate, consistent, steady relationship, becoming one with someone. And so all of the things that you were hiding or could rather hide when you were dating, you can no longer hide. They're now exposed and amplified, and they're bigger and they're coming to life. And it's like, what do I do with all of this? And so these are like, so I don't even think it's about just necessarily dealing with the silent signals in a relationship, but you got to even deal with those silent signals when you're not in a relationship. Yeah. And that's real because we don't like to address issues because they do hurt emotionally. Addressing some challenges or some truths about yourself that you don't like is difficult because realistically, we don't want to be that way. I don't want to deal with this hurt. I don't want to be labeled with this type of hurt. I should be bigger or better than this. I should know better. I should be stronger. Dealing with this, what does it say about me? And, you know, and dealing with that insecurity and feeling too inadequate and feeling as if you're not enough. It's hard to deal with that, but it's dealing with it that helps us overcome it. And I think that is the reality, even in a marriage, is realizing that even though our marriage is not stellar, even though it's not enough, even though it's not necessarily what we expected it to be, I've got to realize that in order to overcome it, I got to deal with it.
You got to deal with it, yeah.
I got to deal with it. It may expose some stuff. It may be stuff that we got to talk about that I don't necessarily like. I may have feelings that I don't necessarily want to address because that's really the truth behind a lot of this stuff. We don't want to address some of this stuff. I really rather sweep it under the rug because I don't want to have that moment. I don't want to have this feeling. Like, I don't want to feel that way. I want to be happy. You know, I want to have joy. But in order to have it authentically, we got to address it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking about the years, you said something earlier, how everything had become transactional with us. And going back to that, whenever you start feeling like you're roommates, that's definitely a silent signal. Roommates, yeah. Because roommates, you know how to operate. Like we're honestly, we're good roommates. You know what I'm saying? And because we know how to operate optimally, we know how to get things done. We know how to move and shift things about. And, you know, even now with kids. And so, and there's some people that are, you know, they're just not good roommates. Right. But I think just naturally, you and I just kind of know how to figure stuff out. But that when it comes a time where that's all it is a roommate type behavior. I don't walk up and kiss you. Or I was listening to someone and they said that a woman needs 12 non-sexual touches a day. So that's a hug, a brush up, a grab your hand, a, you know,
not your booty.
Not your booty. But, you know, I'll hold my comment for that. But you know, that's the, you know, because I'll tell y'all, I'll let y'all a little bit in our bedroom. I got to rub her feet like every night. That's just kind of like the thing that needs to happen. Or hand or arm or something like that. And that's like a norm for us, right? For me, because I am a touchy-feely person, for me, that is that connection. Like if things have we just been all over the place all day, that is kind of like our moment to,
because it's hard for me to rest.
It's hard for her to rest. And for me, I just need to feel that kind of connection. You know what I mean? So I don't mind doing that. I might give her a little flack every once in a while, but I think I even told you, like, there was a time where things had gotten really drifted apart. And so none of that was happening. Yeah. And no remember, touching. I told you, and I said, if I need to rub your feet every night just to feel connected with you, and I would want to do it, and because I would not feel any kind of connection with you whatsoever.
Because I didn't want you to touch me. Like, I didn't even want you to touch me.
Yeah, it was bad, y'all.
Yeah.
It was
like,
bad.
I didn't, like, I don't know. And it's not like your touch would disgust me. It was disconnected. Like, it was like a stranger. Like, I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel intimate, you know, like people say intimacy is like you're into someone. I wasn't into you. You know what I mean? So of course I didn't want you to really touch me. I don't care if it was a foot rub or a touch. Don't I'm already not, like, you know, people may not really know this, but I'm not really a touchy-feely person.
No, she's not.
Like, that's something he complained about, but that's just me.
And then God gave you
our son. and he gave me not only a touchy-feely husband, but touchy-feely children. Like, they are, especially my son, they are touchy. But I'm okay with it because I believe God did that to kind of pull me out of that space that I was raised in. That's how I was raised. I was raised with parents who were not touchy-feely at all. Like, hugs, even to this day, are very awkward because we were not a touchy-feely family. And so when things got bad, it was amplified. And so the last thing I want you to do is touch me. You know, I would sit far away from you. So literally, speaking of roommates, those were very much so silent signals that our relationship was done. And I think a lot of times you, like I say, you ignore those as signals because you feel like as long as we not, you know, running through the house with knives or going off on each other, everything's fine. We're fine. But realistically, you're not. And that amplifies into something more. Like, that's how people end up in separate bedrooms. And, you know, I was talking to someone and they kind of just told me casually that them and their husband lived in a separate bedroom. And it was casual. It was like, I love my husband, but sometimes he got to go to his room and I got to go to mine. And I'm like, and I don't think they thought about what they said. And I'm like, okay, maybe they just got like, I don't know, man cave, woman, what is it? Woman, whatever cave. She shed. Yeah. I was like, I'm not quite sure how to draw my conclusion on this, but it was so casual. As if it was just okay, you know, and they were like, we just go to, I just go to my room, he go to his room, and then we just carried on through the night, and I just, we just go to bed, and it was just like, okay, maybe she falling asleep in a she shed and he falling asleep in the man cave. Like,
you're trying to figure it out.
Right. But I think a lot of people just kind of chop it up as long as we're still married, that's enough. That's enough. But I believe that God wants us to have marriages that are fulfilling, that are full of love, that are full of joy, marriages that he predestined and ordained, like true love covenants, not just, you slap this covenant on and you just got to deal with it. And you're going to be unhappy, but as long as that covenant's still in place, then God is like, no, I want you fulfilled. I want you whole. And if you just give me room, I can show you how to get there.
And it's funny because like when you were telling me that prior, it's so interesting to me because when you go out of town or when I go out of town, like I miss you so much. You know what I'm saying? It's just so weird. It's like, okay, she's not here.
And we go everywhere together.
And when we have to go in those separate times and you know, if I'm in a hotel or if she's gone and I'm at home alone, like I really do. Like, of course, I like sleeping in a big bed and all that stuff. But at the same time, yeah. It's like, dang, man, Kris ain't even here. Like, because we enjoy each other's company, even when it comes to going to sleep, you know. But it's something that you said, and I think I mentioned this to you before. I didn't know you weren't touchy-feely in the beginning because the times that we were around, it seemed like you were touchy-feely. It seemed like you just liked to be all up under me. And then after we got married, it just seemed like, what happened? You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if that was some type of, I don't know where the silent signal is with that of what changed. Because like I said, in the very beginning, you know, we weren't really officially dating like that, but I would come over your house, we'll watch TV and you'll be all snuggled up under me and stuff like that, fall asleep on me or whatever. Or when I had the spot up there in Hateville that time, you'll come and fall asleep. So it would just be, it'll be weird because I thought you were, but you ended up not being. You know what I'm saying? What do you think that was? I
don't know. I mean, it could be a matter of the fact that, like you said, we didn't take that time to connect and really date. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I think before you get married, you do need that courtship time to grow and get to know each other on a different scale. I think I trusted you as my friend, as like one of my closest friends. And I think that's what caused me to kind of let that guard down. But then when we got married, the friendship had left.
Yeah.
And we were just married. And it was like, but there was no connection. So now I got a wall up because I'm like, okay, who is this? And then I began to see another side of you. And I was like, who is this? This is not the same person I married. This is not who I established this strong relationship and friendship with. You were no longer my best friend. It almost felt like you were an enemy. You know what I mean? And so, no, I don't want to be laying on you and being close to you, because it seemed like, and I remember saying this before, you had completely let all the facade down. Like just whatever you were before we got married was like, psh, this is surprise. This is the real me. You know what I mean? And it was right. The home of the clown. No, I'm just kidding. But no, for real. But it really felt like you were just different. So it was, instead of me kind of wanting to embrace the difference, I just built a wall against it. Like, I don't even want to get to know this new person. Like, it was just an instant wall, just kind of like, whatever. And before I could even decide whether I wanted to walk away or take the wall down, I got pregnant. Yeah. And she slid in, because people might want to know, like, well, if y'all weren't really intimate, how did it happen? I was on birth control, and we weren't that intimate, but one time, and I got pregnant. So God was like, bada boom, bada bing, you know?
What birth control? Move out the way.
Yeah. And Kaylin came. So it was like, at that point, I couldn't make a decision. It was just kind of like, all right, we got this baby now. We got to move forward. Yeah. You know, so I just think it is consistently allowing things to take place, even though God is like, alert, 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 you know, but you still just kind of keep moving forward, you know, no matter what.
What do you think people should do when they encounter these silent alerts, you know, or silent alarms? How should someone address it? Because I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, you might see it, but a natural instinct for some people might be to run away. And is it always the answer to run away? Or is it to, like, what do you think people should do? Because I have my thoughts, but what do you think?
I definitely think it should be addressed, because if you don't bring it up, then there's no way to address it. There's no way to, you know, conquer it. You know what I mean? You have to address the mountain. You have to address the challenge. You can't just act like it's not there. You know what I mean? Like, you have to take the time to, you know, like, push against it. And I believe pushing against it is addressing it head on. You know, a lot of times we try to find scapegoats around it, or we try to just kind of let it sit there and ignore it. And, you know, or we try to find ways to just kind of cover it. But in order to overcome it, you got to address that thing. You can't keep allowing something to come in between your marriage when God is saying this is a problem and you just act as if it's not there. Like, no, if it's a problem, we need to come together and address this issue. And I think it's not even just addressing it, it's being open to overcoming it. Yeah. Because I think a lot of times we can address something, and when we address it, one party then is offended. Mm-hmm. And then because there's offense, then there's an enemy, then there's a bigger problem because that's not really what it is. It's da-da-da-da-da. And then we turn to an argument. Well, if you address it and there's no safe, I guess, space to equally overcome it, then you got to go to counseling, bring in a mediator. My thing is, do everything possible that you can do before running away. Just know that you've exhausted all resources before saying this just isn't going to work. Yeah. Take some time to actually, and even if you address it, you bring in a mediator, you bring in a counselor, you go through it and it still doesn't work. I still say don't make a quick decision. Just sit for a moment, because you never know what God can do to intervene and interfere in somebody's heart, to open their perspective, to be able to see, okay, maybe we need to make a shift right here. You kind of get what I'm saying? Like, for us, we separated, and I'm not saying that this is the decision that others need to make, but we separated for a long amount of time before I made that final decision of running away. But here was another silent signal, was I also started envisioning life without you.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
It was like, okay, this is over, because I then started making moves as if I was single, meaning, okay, what do I need to do financially? How do I need to do this? What am I going to do with my kids? Like, literally building a plan as a single mom on how to move things forward. Mm-hmm. And so in that process, I also said, okay, while I'm going through this process, remember we had gotten like some type of paper or something, some type of contract that said at least you'll work on each other while you're going through this process of separation. So even though I was building life without you, we had also agreed to at least try to work on each other, like work on our relationship. But in that time of separation, that gave, I believe for us, it gave God room to move on our heart and on our behalf to say, okay, I need to, not Rob needs to, but Kris needs to do blase in order for this to work. You get what I mean? Yeah,
that contract, I think it was called like a love contract or something like that. And it was literally agreement of, it was like 3 pages and and we literally, it was literally a contract. And
it was.
We went through and we had to write down the things that we were going to do in order to make things work.
That you weren't just going to give up.
That you weren't just going to give up. And I think a lot of people might think that's real trivial or something like that, but I think it's something about when you're writing something down and it gets before your face, you agreed to doing A, B, C, D, and E. And now if you don't uphold A, B, C, D, and E, you have defaulted on this contract, And I think that when that was occurring and when we did that, that was one of the things that I said, I'm not gonna default. Like, I'm gonna make sure that I uphold my end. And it was almost like I want to uphold my end just to show her that she wrong. That's what, you know what I'm saying? That's what I kind of, because, I like challenge. I'm like, man, I'm going to uphold mine just so she know that she wrong, and then.
And see, I want to uphold my end just so he'll see what he going to miss out on. Like, facts. Like, the motive wasn't right.
Yeah, the motive, on either side, the motive wasn't right.
But it led us to the finish line.
Yeah, it did, because our best selves came out, and then came that journey of rebuilding and moving back into each other with each other. I don't think we ever shared this before, but we were separated for 8 months, and when we got back together, we had moved back in. We bought a house, and we had moved back in, and that was our first time together in 8 months. And so we were separated for probably like 6 months before we even had discussed purchasing a house. Yep. Purchasing the house was getting all the the residue out and all of that stuff. We're gonna do this. And even though we're in separate households, we're still maintaining the integrity of the relationship. A lot of people, when they separate, that's it. So like you said, they're in preparation to go the other way. And it's a lot. Like they, you know, they're already dating. Like sometimes I'll be like, how you separated? And the separation really should be about you trying to work out things with each other, not trying to figure out how you're going to live life single. You know, and so there are some people that are already got their roster going out on this date and that date and trying this out, which is another silent signal. Like, man, hold on, like, you know, a lot of people say separation is preparation for divorce, which I get it, because a lot of people say you're not supposed to separate. You got to work this thing out inside the home. But if you really, truly want your marriage to work, this separation might be something that'll help, but you have to understand how strong you are. You have to understand how focused you are. Because, we both could have been in separate households, and we both could have been going out and dating and doing all these different things and living it up. Because, you know, I say, and this is, and I'm not picking on anybody, and feel free to disagree, but I say for people that are separated, you know, or divorced, and the kids are in separate households, y'all have it a little bit easier. Because you don't have the kids with you 24/7. Y'all alternate on the weekends. You know what I'm saying? If y'all have a more equal relationship, y'all may alternate on the weekends. So one weekend you got the kids, the other weekend the other person got the kids. But when you married, you always got the kids, unless the grandparents or something come along. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like when people try to take the divorce route too soon, or when people try to separate too soon, or when they separate, they're looking for an out. It's like a false
sense of reality. It's like you feel like it's easier to go this route rather than to kind of, you know, dig in the mud. It's easier to just say, all right, I'm gonna just run this out. You know, I'm just gonna go this direction. I can handle it on my own, or I can do yada yada yada, rather than just saying I'm gonna get in the mud. I'm gonna work through this thing. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be muddy. It's gonna be dirty, murky. It's gonna be it all. But I'm going to stick in, you know, stick in it, you know, and stay in it. And so I think that was something that occurred for me, was just kind of like, yes, I'm preparing life on my own, but I'm also it's almost like kind of keep going through the motions, right? But I'm going to still keep trying to move forward with my spouse, because I do want this to work out. I do want to encounter a healthy relationship. I do want to encounter a whole relationship. So I'm going to do both, you know what I mean? And, you know, working it out with you actually ended up, you know, manifesting, you know, into a space that I never expected or imagined. And so buying a house was literally a faith move. It was God saying, y'all do this. You're saying yes. You're saying yes again. That's really what that was, like walking down the aisle again. And moving into the house together was like I had to unlearn, like I said before, bad behavior. I had to unlearn the mistakes. I had to unlearn a lot of the, you know, the characteristics that I carried because of the baggage or the blame, the guilt, you know, the shame, all of it. And it was like a moment of intent to say, okay, you move into this house. This house is new. This relationship is new. You move in brand new. And that's what, you know, that's what I did. So I think if you want to say, how do you address those silent signals again, you have to take the time to address them. Literally, I mean, how to address them, you address them. You can't ignore them. You can't try to cover them up. You can't act as if they don't exist. You got to take those things head on and do the necessary work if you want it.
Yeah, and the necessary work with evidence of working too. Like a lot of people say, oh yeah, I'll do it. I'll fix it, you know, and because nobody's holding you accountable, you end up really not fixing the issue, you know, whatever it is, but you all have to hold each other accountable and recognizing like, this is not just a silent signal for you. This is a silent signal for us. You know,
for our kids.
This is a silent signal that we all have to. So a lot of times, you know, we talked about in I don't know, this episode, last episode, where we were just talking about like, it's about you, what you did and all these different things. And I'm not addressing anything that I got going on. It's all about you. No. This is about us in the silent signals that we're both portraying, because you could be showing it, but I could be supporting it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I could be feeding it as well. So what am I doing to feed that silent signal, even though you're the one that's actually responding to it and showing it? Yeah. So overcoming that. So like, let's kind of get ready to bring this to a close. This is really good. With silent signals, we talked about addressing silent signals. How about, do you feel like there's a way to uncover silent signals?
What do you mean uncover? Like the difference between uncover and like addressing?
Uncover as in like there's something I'm hiding. Something that, like, you hear this all the time. It's so funny because with Christian men, it seemed like the only Christian men issue Christian men ever deal with, you always hear about porn. Like you always hear about that. And I'm sitting there like, no, there's like a million other issues. Like porn, it's not, I mean, it might be a top for a lot of people, but there's more issues. But there's more issues. But I'll take that for an example, because I think people that can be more exposed, because it's one of those tangible things. You open up the computer, you see something you're not supposed to see or whatever. But in your journey, or in your conversations with people, like, how do you feel like you can help people uncover if they have some issues on their own that need to be dealt with, or in their relationship?
I mean, I think that is a personal, kind of decision. I can't force you to uncover anything. That is your own conviction, your own kind of come to Jesus moment. Like I couldn't, like, even though I knew you were depressed, I couldn't force you to uncover depression. Yeah. Because if I could have, I do believe that our relationship kind of would have went a different direction, sooner. But I couldn't force you to uncover that. I couldn't come to you, Rob, you depressed, and you look at me like, okay, Rob, you might want to deal with that depression. No matter how Christian I could come to you, or how much Christianese I could provide, no matter how much word,
Praying,
and I could pray to God, but I couldn't pray in front of you thinking that's going to push you to uncover, the fact that you're depressed. That had to be a you decision. And that's, I hate to say risk, but that's the faith that we have to have, is to trust that God will, again, intervene. But even if God intervenes, because we're free moral agents, you still do what you want to do. Yeah. You still can make your own decision. God could be pressing on your heart saying, hey, bro, you got to deal with this, son. You got to come out of this. God could be twisting your heart and you could feel so uncomfortable. But guess who still can make whatever decision they want to make?
Yeah. You. That's true. Yeah.
So that's one thing you cannot force someone to uncover something. You can pray and you can trust God, to one, intervene and they, uncover for their own healing, or two, just give God room to tell you how you should go about situations. And that's something that, because I can't handle you, but I can handle myself. I can handle how I move, how I speak. So if you're in the midst of healing from something, and I want you so desperately to uncover, but this thing, but you won't uncover it, then I can also ask God to help me navigate through this relationship. Show me the words to say. Show me how to comfort. Show me how to pray. Show me how to move. Show me how to be a wife. Show me how to be a husband in this. Show me the way. Yeah. And that's literally all we could do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this was good.
Yeah.
I always like these conversations. Hopefully there's something that you guys were able to get out of it. This is really, when we talk about some of these topics, like, we may not even have talking points. We just sometimes just go.
Yeah.
And I think that's necessary, for people to get our honest, transparent answer, and even when nothing's rehearsed, because Kris over there saying betrayed it and everything.
You ain't gonna let that go.
I ain't gonna let that go.
You gonna let that go. Because I was feeling all in my hood, like, and you betrayed it, me.
Oh, you betrayed it. You betrayed it, babe.
That's how arguments be going. You're like, what you say?
Yeah. But listen, y'all, it is truly a pleasure that we had the opportunity to be able to share these things with you. Just again, praying that, whatever you're going through, if there's something that you're going through, take that time, that necessary time to understand that there may be some alerts that are out there that you can find. Like, we could probably go another hour just talking about it.
Because we didn't even talk about the kids.
No, we didn't even talk about the kids, man. Maybe, we got to figure all that out. But just certain things to just us to be able to deliver to you.
Yeah.
And, if you have any questions, any thoughts, definitely feel free to reach out to one of us on social media. You can always email us at show@wechoseus.com and we'll get back with you. Maybe there's a question that we can actually add as well. But y'all stay tuned. We got several episodes coming up. Yeah. We're going to extend the season a little bit longer since we had to cut the last one a little short. Look like we might have to add some episodes onto this one.
And send us some feedback. Any topics you kind of want us to address and discuss. We are here for that, because we know we're not just talking about us, but we want our transparency to bless others. And so there may be something that you want us to talk about. So don't be shy.
All right. Love you guys. Right. See you guys later.
Love is beautiful, but let's be real. It ain't always easy. We've been through the storms, the highs, the lows, and everything in between.
But through it all, we made a choice again and again. We chose love. We chose commitment. We chose us.
Because marriage isn't just about saying I do. It's about choosing to stay.
Welcome to We Chose Us, because love is worth the fight.